Look, I need you to understand something about 13-year-old me. I was an idiot. Not like the cute, oh, kids will be kids kind of idiot. I'm talking genuine, Darwin Award-worthy stupidity. The kind where, looking back, I'm honestly surprised I made it to 14. It was July, middle of summer break, that dead zone where you've already beaten every video game you own and your mom's starting to give you chores just to keep you busy. My buddy Jake and I were sprawled out in his garage, which was less of a garage and more of a junk museum his dad refused to organize. Broken lawnmowers, paint cans from 1987, a canoe with a hole in it, standard suburban dad stuff. "Dude, I'm so bored I could die," Jake said, which is ironic considering what almost happened to me like 40 minutes later. I was picking at the label on a warm Mountain Dew when I saw it, sitting in the corner, covered in a tarp that looked like it hadn't been moved since the Bush administration. Not the recent Bush, the first one. "What's under there?" I asked. Jake glanced over. "Oh, that's my dad's old dirt bike. Thing hasn't run in like 6 years. Now, a smart person would have heard hasn't run in 6 years and thought, okay, so that's a non-functioning motorcycle. Got it. But I heard dirt bike, and my brain immediately supplied exactly one thought. I want to ride that. "Does it work?" I asked, already walking toward it. Probably not. Dad said the carburetor's shot or something. I yanked the tarp off. Dust exploded everywhere, and we both started coughing like we'd discovered a pharaoh's tomb. The bike was this faded red color, covered in rust spots and spider webs. It looked like something you'd find in a post-apocalyptic movie. It was perfect. "We should try to start it," I said. Jake looked at me like I'd just suggested we rob a bank. "Dude, my dad will kill me. Your dad's at work until 6. It's 2:30. It won't even start. So then there's no problem, right? We try, it doesn't work, we cover it back up. He'll never know." I watched Jake's face do this thing where he tried to think of a reason to say no but couldn't quite get there. That should have been my first warning sign, when even Jake, who once ate a crayon on a dare, thinks your idea might be questionable. "Fine," he said, "but I'm not touching it. This is all you." Famous last words. I straddled the bike. The seat was cracked and smelled like mildew and regret. There was a key already in the ignition, which felt like fate, like the universe was giving me permission. "You even know how to start a dirt bike?" Jake asked. "How hard can it be?" Spoiler alert, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I turned the key. Nothing. I twisted the throttle a few times, because that's what people do in movies, and tried again. Still nothing. There was this little lever thing on the side that I kicked down with my foot, and on the third kick, the engine made a sound. Not a good sound. Kind of like a mechanical cough, like the bike was trying to tell me, "Please don't do this." But then, on the 5th kick, it caught. The engine roared to life way louder than I expected, this aggressive snarling sound that shook the whole garage. Tools rattled on the walls, a paint can fell over. Jake actually jumped. "Holy shit!" I yelled over the noise. "It works!" The bike was vibrating underneath me like a pissed-off animal. Black smoke started pouring out of the exhaust, filling the garage with this toxic-smelling cloud. That's when I should have turned it off. But instead I looked at Jake, grinned like an absolute maniac, and said the 4 words that almost killed me. "Let's take it outside." Getting the bike out of the garage was harder than I thought. Turns out when you've never ridden a motorcycle before, even moving it 10 feet while it's running is a legitimate challenge. I basically walked it out, waddle style, while Jake held the garage door open and looked around like we were conducting a drug deal. "If my dad finds out," he started. "He won't." We lived in one of those neighborhoods where all the houses have big backyards that connect to this service road behind them. It's technically private property, but nobody ever uses it except for the occasional trash truck. It was perfect. Isolated. No witnesses. I should mention that at this point, my total motorcycle experience was 0. I'd ridden a bicycle. I'd played Mario Kart. In my 13-year-old brain, these qualifications were sufficient. "You're actually gonna ride it?" Jake asked as I walked the bike toward the service road. Just up and down a little bit. I'll be careful. First lie of the day. I climbed back on. The engine was still running, still making that angry sound. I twisted the throttle slightly and the bike lurched forward maybe 2 inches before stalling out. See, Jake said, it doesn't even work properly. But I was already kicking the starter again. It fired up on the second try this time like it was getting a taste for running. I planted both feet on the ground and gave the throttle the tiniest twist. The bike shot forward. Not fast, but fast enough that I had to actually use my feet to stay balanced. I wobbled down the service road for maybe 20 yards, then managed to squeeze the brake and stop without falling over. My heart was hammering. That was sick, Jake yelled. It was sick. It was the coolest thing I'd ever done, which meant naturally I had to do it again, but faster. This is the part where the wheels really came off, metaphorically speaking, though almost literally too, as you'll see. I went back to the starting point. Gave it more throttle this time. The bike responded instantly, and suddenly I was actually riding. Wind in my face, engine screaming, the whole thing. For about 5 seconds, I felt like an absolute god. Then I realized I was running out of road. The service path was maybe 100 yards long before it dead-ended into someone's fence. I squeezed the brake, probably too hard, and the back tire locked up. The bike started fishtailing. I panicked and let go of the brake completely, which made me speed up again, now aimed directly at a chain-link fence. I yanked the handlebars to the right. The bike obeyed, but now I was heading straight for a ditch on the side of the road. I overcorrected left, then right again. I was zigzagging like a drunk person, each swerve getting more violent. "Stop!" Jake was screaming, but I physically didn't know how anymore. That's when I saw the hill, not a big hill. Maybe a 6-foot incline where the service road connected to someone's backyard. But to a kid with zero control over a motorcycle going 25 miles per hour, it might as well have been a launch ramp. My front tire hit the incline, and suddenly I wasn't on the ground anymore. I was flying. Time did that thing where it slows down but also speeds up. I remember every single detail of those 3 seconds in the air, and simultaneously, I remember none of it. The bike was still screaming. The engine didn't care that we'd left the earth. I was gripping the handlebars so hard I thought my fingers might break. My legs were flailing, trying to find ground that wasn't there anymore. I saw Jake's backyard underneath me, a trampoline, a kiddie pool, a garden gnome, and then I saw the tree. Not a small tree, a massive oak tree in the middle of Jake's neighbor's yard, and I was heading straight for it, like a heat-seeking missile made of bad decisions and teenage stupidity. This is the moment. This is when I actually genuinely thought I was going to die. Not in a dramatic movie way, in a very specific, concrete way. I thought, I am 13 years old. I am going to hit this tree at 20-something miles per hour on a motorcycle I don't know how to ride, and I am going to die, and they're going to find me in the Johnsons' backyard, and my mom is going to be so mad. That last thought is what I remember most clearly. Not fear for my life, but this bizarre certainty that my mom's anger was going to somehow transcend my death. I hit the tree. Or more accurately, I didn't. The bike smashed into the trunk. I didn't. Because at some point during the flight, and I swear I don't remember doing this consciously, I let go. I flew over the bike, past the tree, and landed in the Johnsons' above-ground pool. The water was cold, shockingly cold for July. I went completely under, still wearing my shoes, my phone in my pocket, every part of me screaming that I should be dead but somehow wasn't. I surfaced, gasping, ears ringing. Behind me, the bike's engine was still running. The front wheel was completely bent sideways. The handlebars were twisted like a pretzel. Jake was standing at the edge of the yard, frozen, his face whiter than I'd ever seen it. And Mrs. Johnson was standing on her back porch, holding a watering can, staring at me like I'd just materialized from another dimension. Which, in a way, I guess I had. The bike finally died about 10 seconds after I climbed out of the pool. Just sputtered out like even it couldn't believe what just happened. Mrs. Johnson didn't call the cops, which was nice of her. She did call Jake's dad, though, which was less nice. She also made me sit on her porch while we waited, dripping pool water onto her welcome mat, while she asked me questions like, "What were you thinking?" and "Do your parents know where you are?" The answer to both, no, absolutely not. Jake's dad showed up 16 minutes later. I know because I counted every single second. He didn't yell, which somehow made it worse. He just looked at the bike, then at me, then at the bike again and said, "Get in the car." He drove me home. Didn't say a word the entire time. When we pulled up to my house, he finally spoke. "You tell your parents what happened or I will." I told them. My mom cried, not angry crying, scared crying, which was somehow way worse. My dad just kept saying, "You could have died," over and over, like if he said it enough times, the reality would finally sink into my stupid teenage brain. I had bruises for 2 weeks. My phone was destroyed. I was grounded for the entire rest of the summer, which at the time felt like cruel and unusual punishment, but in retrospect was extremely generous. Jake's dad had to pay like $800 to get the bike hauled away as scrap. Jake wasn't allowed to hang out with me for the rest of the summer. His dad called me a bad influence, which, yeah, fair. Here's the thing, though. I think about that day a lot. 11 years later, I still sometimes wake up and remember that moment in the air, seeing that tree, being absolutely certain I was about to die. And the weirdest part? The thing that sticks with me most isn't the fear or the crash or even getting in trouble. It's how quiet everything was right after I hit the water. Just for a second, before the panic set in, I was underwater and everything was silent and peaceful, and I remember thinking, "Oh, I'm not dead." I learned exactly one lesson that day. I'm an idiot, but I'm a lucky idiot. And honestly, I'll take it.